Nitai Go Premanande Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Stotra Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Abhayachan Aravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Stotra Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Arantakori Vaishnav Vrind Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद के श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड के गोवर्धन के वृंदावन धाम के मथुरा धाम के मायापुर धाम के श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम के गंगा माई के यमुना माई के तुलसी माता के श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसलेंडल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के Srila Prabhupada Translation Prasharam Distribution Ki, Tita Go Premanande. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glory to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glory to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. That helps. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for coming to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13, verse number 24, that's on the board. And before we read the text, we recite the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 3, Chapter 13, verse number 24. Brahmanam Harshayamasha Haristvam Chadvijotaman Swagajitena Kakubha Pratisvanyata Vibhu Brahmanam Harshayamasha Haristvam Chadvijotaman Swagurjitena Kakubha Pratishvanayata Vibhu Brahmanam Harshayamasha Haristvam Chadvijotama Swagurjitena Kakubha Pratishvanyata Vibhu. Brahmanam unto Brahma Harshayam Asha enlivened Harihi the personality of Godhead Tan all of them cha, also. Dvija Uttaman, highly elevated Brahmanas. Swagajidena, by his uncommon voice. Kakuba, all directions. Pratishvanyata, which echoed. Vibhu, the omnipotent. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. The omnipotent Supreme Personality of Godhead enlivened Brahma and other highly elevated Brahmanas by again roaring with his uncommon voice, which echoed in all directions. Purport. Brahma and other enlightened Brahmanas who know the Supreme Personality of Godhead are enlivened by the appearance of the Lord in any of his multi-incarnations. The appearance of the wonderful and gigantic incarnation of Vishnu as the mountain-like boar did not fill them with any kind of fear, although the Lord's resounding voice was tumultuous and echoed horribly in all directions as an open threat to all demons who might challenge his omnipotency. So I'll just wondering if I can read also 25, because the book was a bit short. Okay. So I'll just read the verse and then I'll read the translation. Text 25. Nishamyate gargaharitam svakeda shayishnu mayamaya sukrasaya janastapa satyanivashinaste tribhi pavitre munayo grinansmaha. Translation. When the great sages and thinkers who are residents of Janaloka, Tapaloka and Satyaloka heard the tumultuous voice of Lord Boar, which was the all-auspicious sound of the all-merciful Lord, they chanted auspicious chants from the three Vedas. The word Maya Maya is very significant in this verse. Maya means mercy, specific knowledge, and also illusion. Therefore, Lord Boar is everything. He is merciful, he is all knowledge, and he is illusion also. The sound which he vibrated as the boar incarnation was answered by the Vedic hymns of the great sages in the planets Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. The highest intellectual and pious living entities live in those planets. And when they heard the extraordinary voice of the boar, they could understand that the specific sound was vibrated by the Lord and no one else. Therefore, they replied by praying to the Lord with Vedic hymns. The earth planet was submerged in the mire, but on hearing the sound of the Lord, the inhabitants of the higher planets were all jubilant because they knew that the Lord was there to deliver the earth. Therefore, Brahma and all the sages such as Bhrigu, Brahma's other sons, and learned Brahmanas were enlivened, and they concertedly joined in praising the Lord with the transcendental vibrations of the Vedic hymns. The most important is the Brihan Naradiya Purana verse. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatirubhascha kripa sindhubhaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I'll read translation of text 24 and text 25 together, because we stopped at text 25. Text 24, the omnipotent Supreme Personality of Godhead enlivened Brahma and the other highly elevated Brahmanas by again roaring with his uncommon voice, which echoed in all directions. That's 24. 25. When the great sages and thinkers who are residents of Janaloka, Tapaloka and Satyaloka heard the tumultuous voice of Lord Bor, which was the all-auspicious sound of the all-merciful Lord, they chanted auspicious chants from the three Vedas. So this chapter is titled Appearance of Lord Varaha, and what we've just seen is so far that's being described is the appearance of Lord Varaha that happened. So in the Bhagavatam, there are descriptions of two incarnations Lord Varaha. This one that we've just read is from the appearance that happened during the reign of Swayambhuva Manu. And what we'll see later, slightly described, is the second incarnation where there's a fight between the Lord and Hiranyaksha. So the Lord stays true to his word because he states in the Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritanam dharma samsthapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. In every millennium, whenever there's a rise in irreligion and decline in religion, I appear myself to deliver the miscreants and to kill the miscreants and to deliver the pious. So a similar situation is happening here. It happened, I guess this happened in the Satya Yuga. Now we're in the Kali Yuga. And in the Kali Yuga, I was actually reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, second chapter in the Adi Leela. And there was a very nice glorification of Lord Chaitanya that I thought of sharing with us all here. But before that, what's described in the Bhagavatam 11th canto is the incarnation of, or the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. And that verse goes as, just read this here. Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam Sango Pangas Parshadam Yagye Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Hi Su Sumeda Saha. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. And I'll just go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita now that describes what is Lord Chaitanya specifically doing in this age of Kali. So Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 2, verse number 1. Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Vande Balopayad Anugraha Tare Nana Matagraha Vyaptam Siddhanta Sagaram. I offer my obeisance to Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even an ignorant child can swim across the ocean of conclusions about the ultimate truth, which is full of the crocodiles of various theories. So in this age, everyone has their own theory, and if you really look a bit deeper, the theory is, I'm God. And everyone's going around with this notion, and Lord Chaitanya has come to dispel that. So, we see in this pastime how Lord Varaha appeared from the nostril of Brahma. If you were to go and just look at it from a very, if you were to apply a rational, logical sense to it, it wouldn't make sense, appearing from a nose, or the nostril, which is not considered to be very clean. But as we see, the Lord is beyond all modes. Even though he incarnates, so he appears as a boar, his supremacy is never diminished. In fact, he's further glorified. Here you see the sages are glorifying him through chants of the Vedic hymns. And obviously, the Maha Mantra is what that encapsulates everything. So the Maha Mantra is there for us. That's the weapon in this age for us to attain that spiritual perfection. So, I'll get to the point of where, it's described, where there's a very important point that Srila Prabhupada actually makes towards the end, is that, and when I was reading it, I was recently reading an article by Shubhak Swami on faith, how faith is the bedrock of our spiritual progress, even though faith is not directly bhakti, but it's an important ingredient of bhakti. And if you look at the Cambridge Dictionary, faith, the word faith, the meaning that's given there is to have trust or confidence in something. And Srila Prabhupada in his purport to Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse number 41 is to have faith in something sublime. And also Prabhupada extends that further in Chaitanya Charitamrita, is that one should have, so he defines faith is obviously translated from Shraddha, is that to have faith is that by executing or by performing devotion service, all of the subsidiary activities would be taken care of. That means that by participating in this process of Sankirtana, that all other needs will be taken care of. That means that that's my ticket to perfection. That by doing so, there's no need for anything else. When I read that, I was remembering some pastime. So this pastime of Lord Varaha is nothing, we may see it, as an event that's unconceivable to our eyes. We just can't fathom, Lord Varaha appearing from the nostril and then expanding and then going and picking up the earth that's fallen into the ocean. Like, come on. What are we seeing here? But again, this is beyond our dimension of understanding from the mundane perspective. If you see in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, when Arjuna makes a request to Krishna to see the universal form, what does he see? If you see the description, he sees unlimited mouths, unlimited faces, and then he describes if 1,000,000 suns were to come onto the horizon, the dazzling effulgence of it, if we were to see just the sun, just one sun with our eyes, we'll get burnt. But here we see Arjuna has been given that vision. So Krishna gives that vision. So through the process of bhakti, we are given that sense of conviction, if we are sincere, to see something that's even beyond our perception. Like we see in the Bhagavatam, how Lord Brahma, he takes birth from the navel of Lord Vishnu. There's a lotus that sprouts, and then from there comes Lord Brahma. And it is said that Brahma traces down to the depths of time just to find the origin of it. And over here there's a picture, not here, but I think that if you picture that in the Bhagavatam, what we're seeing is a very simplistic understanding of, we see everything in one picture. Lord Vishnu is lying down, and there's a lotus that sprouts, and Brahma is sitting there, and you'll be thinking, was it so hard for Brahma to determine where is Vishnu, if he really sees it? But again, it's presented in a simplistic way for our understanding, but in reality, Krishna gives that vision to his devotees. So miracles, or you can call it miracles, are just a super phenomena. the Bhagavatam describes this is something that's the devotee experience on a regular basis. One of my favorite verses in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, I am adventure. And if we see we don't even have to go 500 or 5,000 years ago, but if we even see, even today, those adventures or those extraordinary events are still happening in our vision. We just have to be tuned in to see that. I was remembering my Guru Maharaj was saying when they first were boarding a flight from, everyone, I guess most of us are aware here, Srila Prabhupada in 1970 asked for everyone in the US, the number 2 person of every temple to come and join him in India. So Guru Maharaj was saying him along with other devotees from other temples and had to join some of the other devotees in the UK. So they boarded a plane from Boston to Brussels, and then from Brussels, Gurudas Prabhu had arranged for, you wouldn't even call it a budget airline, it was a World War II cargo plane, which it was described that was meant to be the last flight that would ever take. And then after that, it would never take on. So Gurudas Prabhu found a very good deal, as described by Giriraj Swami was describing it. And he said when they got on the plane, what separated the passengers from the cockpit was just a cloth. It was just a cloth on the just covering the cockpit, so you could see the pilot just behind that. And I'm like, okay. And it was, Gurudas Prabhu describes that plane seemed like a movie Casablanca. The setting was like in an old Arabian cave where, the luggage. So anyway, it's graphically described by Gurudas Prabhu, but the most interesting part is when the plane takes off, and when there was, Giriraj Swami and a few others were there, they were just sincerely chanting japa because, they had the conviction that the holy name will take them. Oh, obviously, that's ultimately a shelter, ashra is the holy name. So the plane takes off and Gurudas Prabhu is looking around, and then all of a sudden there's some turbulence. The plane enters, there's a bit of a storm or something that's happening, and there's turbulence in the plane, and all of a sudden they see that from the cabins, what starts dropping? Some goats and chickens. Some goats and chickens. Yeah. So passengers were carrying goats and chickens with them, and they all started falling on the ground. And devotees, what they do? They start chanting japa intensely. And Gurudas Prabhu was like, okay, what's happening here? And then he asks Giriraj Swami, do you see what's happening? He's like, yes, I see what's happening, but I think you're not taking advantage of the situation and chanting Hare Krishna. Gurudas Prabhu, oh, okay, well, I'll chant Hare Krishna more intensely now. So that's the adventure, and ultimately the plane reached its destination. Again, that was the last flight ever that it took. And so that was, in that book it was described, that's the adventure that devotees. And then they land in Egypt, and I may have relayed this earlier, but they land in Egypt, which just few hours prior to their landing, it was that country of Egypt, there was a civil unrest that was announced there. So practically the army was at war with the civilians. So no one was allowed to leave the airport, and civilians would try to get into the airport just to, get hold of the passengers, because obviously for hostage purposes and so on. So devotees, didn't know what to do. They just said, okay, look, we're going to haul this airplane here, we've got to refuel. But at the same time, we don't know if some of the civilians are going to come and attack us or whatever. So devotees go in, deplane, and they were carrying little Gaur Nitai with them. And as they were doing kirtan, all these guards were looking at them with their guns. And devotees got more ecstatic, and they started chanting more ecstatically. And then the guards were just like sitting there ready with their guns, waiting to just see if even a slight deviation, they'll probably attack or something. So there's one devotee named Nanda Kumar Prabhu. He was like, okay, this is just way too much for me. I can't handle this. He goes behind the plane just to chant his Gayatri and, just to have some moments of peace. And he goes behind the plane, and then 10, 15 minutes later, and when he's chanting Gayatri, he sees the kirtans getting more and more intense, and he's like, oh, Krishna, the gods are just going to get to us. All of a sudden, he finishes his Gayatri, and then he chants one round very intensely, and then he goes in front of the plane. What does he see? That the gods are dancing, and Giriraj Swami is holding the gun. And then they're like, oh, looks like a complete transformation. All the guards were like, they were just dancing ecstatically, and they're like, don't go, just stay with you in Egypt. And the word's like, no, we have to go. we need to go now. We can't stay here. So again, Krishna says, I am adventure. So when we participate in the Sankirtan movement, we see adventure, we see extraordinary things happening. And that again, like I said, is what gives us life. Or else, if you were to just see outside what's happening in this world, everything, starting from the news to just on a very general note, everything just seems that very discouraging. You turn on the news, you don't see anything positive at all. You just see, this unfortunate instances happening. But this Sankirtana movement, as we recite in the Shikshashtam, is a prime benediction for humanity at large. So what I'm trying to get to is that the Lord appears in every age, again to give pleasure to His devotees. In this age, it's Lord Chaitanya who's come. And Lord Chaitanya is giving something that's never been available so freely. So the onus is on us to take to this process seriously. In fact, if you really see, these are stories, just one of many millions and trillions of stories that are out there that give us that inspiration. But if you really look at us, if I look at myself, every day is a miracle. If you just come to see Radha Gopinath and see how lovingly they're accepting our offerings. How despite of all our, at least for myself, my misqualifications, how Radha Gopinath and Srila Prabhupada are really opening their hearts to us just for us to participate in their service, for which, if we really compare ourselves to the people of the bygone ages, we don't have those qualifications. In another place in Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, one should be captivated by this information. So whatever we see in the Bhagavatam, we should draw our minds and our hearts to this information for us to become more and more attached to Krishna. One of the things that happens when we take to Krishna consciousness, or when we take to the process of bhakti, is that we become attached to Krishna and we become detached from the material energy. His Grace Jananivas Prabhu once said there's a difference between austerity and higher taste. Austerity is saying no to sense gratification grudgingly. I wish I could enjoy it, but someone is watching me, so I'll rather keep away from it. And higher taste is you saying no willingly. So automatically you start developing a higher taste by taking to this process of bhakti, and that's what's amazing. That how by just following the instructions that are and the guidance that's been given forth by acharyas, by a spiritual master, coming down through the parampara, how this process is transforming us and how it's transforming the lives of others. Now again, this, like I said, this requires faith. And, we start with Adho Shraddha. Now what enhances our faith, His Holiness Shubhag Maharaj was writing in that article, is first is purity. By following the regular principles, by keeping clean, by controlling our senses, we develop that purity, which progresses us further on this faith. Second is association with Vaishnavas. So we associate with those that will nurture, that will enhance that faith. So it's, obviously there are three kinds of devotees, Kanishta, Madhyam and Uttama. So we always try to, with the Kanishta Adhikaris, depending on where we are at, anyone that's lower than us, we offer them compassion, we treat them with love and affection. Anyone that's equal or our peers, we basically make friendship with them. We at least try to reveal our minds, try to take guidance. on matters that may help us, and from someone higher than us we offer obeisances. We again serve them with respect. So we associate with those that will inspire that faith, and that's very important for us. And third is voluntary service to Krishna. So devotional service, or at least for us in that context, is that we offer a service we voluntarily offer our services. Nothing is forced upon us, but out of our own desire to please the Lord, to please Srila Prabhupada, we offer our love, offer our service to Krishna, and that will actually take us further. Another point that he made in that article that I was reading was a devotee is simple. Simplicity is what somehow it makes that devotee receptive to the messages that are being carried forward by the acharyas and our spiritual master. In this instance, Maharaj was relaying just a story from folklore in Bengal that a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law are going. They have to cross the river to go to and hear a discourse in Bhagavatam. And as they're crossing the lake, the waters were quite low, so they had no difficulty in crossing. So as they crossed the lake to go on the other side, there they heard a discourse in the Bhagavatam, and in that the speaker on the Bhagavatam said, "Just have faith that in all circumstances one should chant the holy name of Hari." I can't recite the Bengali, but this was what was translated in English. So the daughter-in-law, she really, hung on to every word that was spoken, and she was just meditating on it. On the way back, that lake that was quite shallow to begin with, the waters rose up, so it was a bit, it was a little more challenging for them to go there. So halfway through their journey, they noticed some turbulence happening. And in that, the daughter-in-law, she started chanting intensely, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And then the mother-in-law was like, "You fool, what are you doing? Why don't you protect me? Why are you chanting?" And she's like, "Didn't we just hear that in all circumstances one should chant the name of Hari?" And her mother-in-law was totally resistant. She's like, "I don't believe this." As a result of it, she drowned, and this is again a story from the folklore, but the daughter-in-law survived. But the moral of the story was that the daughter-in-law was simple in her heart, that she took to this message and she imbibed it, and that was obviously a protection. Obviously, we hear in so many instances, bhakti is simple for the simple and complicated for the complicated. So when we offer our prayers to Radha Gopinath, or even when we read prayers offered by different personalities in the Bhagavatam, you see that how, we see the depth of their prayers, but most importantly, they're actually offering those prayers from a simple heart. It's coming from a position of, there's no duplicity. They're really offering their heart to the Lord. So simplicity is what the Lord is seeing in us. Sincerity. I'd like to end with this one pastime that I'd heard by Gauranga Prabhu about sincerity that was quite funny but very instructive I'm not sure if any of you have heard of Danavir Maharaj. So Danavir Maharaj, he's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He was preaching in Israel, and while he was preaching in Israel, something happened due to which there was a war-like situation in which the government made an announcement that even the American citizens who are in Israel will have to fight. So Danavir Maharaj was obviously, he's there, I've come here for preaching, and look what I've been dragged into. So he obviously, they had shut down all the outgoing travel, so he couldn't really leave. So he was there, and at that moment, he consulted with a lawyer, and he told the lawyer that, "Look, this is my situation, what do I do?" He said, "No, don't worry. As per the law, every person of every religious faith can make a representation to the officials for you to be given a specific, provision for your daily practice. So he went up to, Danavi Maharaj went up to the military official that was presiding over this, and he said, look, I'm a Hare Krishna, I need a designated, time of the day to be engaged in my religious duties, and, without that I can't perform my actual, duty that you asked me. So, military official, yeah, sure, we can accommodate that. How much time do you need? He said, look, I wake up at 4 in the morning, and I have to bathe my deities. Then after bathing my deities, I have to sing arati. Then after arati, then I have to dress the deities. Then after dressing the deities, I have to do Shringar Darshan. Then I have to offer arati to greet the deities. I have to sing Guru Puja, I have to sing prayers to my spiritual master. And then after that, I have to do a Bhagavatam class. And because no one is there to hear my Bhagavatam class, I have to hear my Bhagavatam class myself. And after that, I have to cook breakfast for my deities. I have to, offer them morning breakfast. And then after that, I have to, since I have had a full-on morning, I need to chant my rounds, which takes up to 2 hours. And after chanting my rounds, then I have to offer them lunch. And then, after offering lunch, so altogether between 6 to 7 hours is what I need. And the military official like, 6 to 7 hours? He said, yes, that's what I need, or else I can't perform my duties. He was bound by the law to offer Danavi Maharaj all those facilities. So Maharaj started doing this, every day he would religiously, perform his services. And then it slowly, this official who had granted him permission was noticing Danavi Maharaj, and he started, developing some sense of affection for Maharaj because he could see the sincerity in Maharaj. So by this happening over a continuous period of time, members of other religious faiths approached the military official like, you're giving this Hare Krishna 6 to 7 hours of liberty to do his services. We also need time. And the military official like, how much time will you take? How much time do you actually need? I see this person every day. He wakes up at 4 a.m., he bathes the deities, he dresses the deities, then he's moving his hand, and then he's raising his hand, and then he's sitting there reading a book. No one is there listening, he himself is hearing. Then he's chanting his rounds, he's meditating for 2 hours, and then I see him cooking, and then he's offering, and then he's eating himself, and then he gives some to me. How much time will you need? I don't think you need more than 15 to 20 minutes. And then these people had nothing to say, so obviously. Then this military official went up to Danavi Maharaj. He's like, look, there's been some commotion in the, amongst the other faiths. So I think it's better for you to get your own room. You get your own room so that it'll be out of, public attention. So here it is Maharaj having his own room, to do his services. Then finally, there came a point where the head of the official basically called for a meeting of all these, of all the soldiers. And then they were saying, we got to discuss strategies. When the enemy attacks us, what are you going to do? These are the weapons that you use. So they finally, when they were having this Ishta Goshti, they looked at, the official looked at Danavi Maharaj. So, I don't know what was his name. What are you going to do if someone attacks you? He said, I'm going to chant Hare Krishna. He's like, okay. What are you going to do when you are about to attack that enemy? I'm going to chant Hare Krishna. Then the soldier was like, okay, looks like there's nothing happening here. So he asked him, how are you going to kill? And Danavi Maharaj said, you tell me who is killed. The body, anyway, it's dead matter. There's a soul within it. So tell me, what killing are you talking about? Now in front of everyone, this official was, caught off guard. He didn't even know what to say. He's like, okay, class dismissed. no more discussion of this. Thank you all for your time. And later on, he took Danavi Maharaj to the side. So, can you tell me the correct answer of your question? Then Maharaj preached to him. And then later on, it turned out to be that this same official ended up taking initiation from Danavi Maharaj. So what we are trying to say is the sincerity, that Krishna looks at sincerity, that in all circumstances, if for us, our surrender doesn't necessarily mean I just go out on the road and come in front of a bus and say, Hare Krishna. We take to the process, we chant our rounds in the proper mood. We follow the process, we serve the devotees, we share this message with others. All that Krishna is asking us to be is to be a nimitta matram, to be an instrument. And when we become an instrument of the Lord, then all these amazing things happen. And we can see it in our lives, and we can see the transformation in others, which is meant to, again, propel our faith. So, in a nutshell, what I got from this verse, and I was fortunate enough to hear a class by Bhakti Charama and Sadaputa Prabhu, is that Krishna is Kritagya. Krishna remembers every little thing that we have done for him, and he reciprocates in that way. So, our duty is to just surrender to the process, for us to be faithful to our acharyas, to our spiritual master, to the devotees, and again, like we said, simply by performing devotional service, all subsidiary activities are fulfilled. So, simply by me performing bhakti, simply by me working to please my spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada and the other acharyas, all success is there. And that's the faith that we need to be working towards. Okay? So, on to my time, I'll end here if there's any question or comment. Reinstating dharma. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. So the first question is there a prediction of who's going to come in Kali Yuga? So, like I said earlier, Krishna appears in every yuga. However, in this Kali Yuga, there's Lord Chaitanya appears. It's a covered incarnation, the Channa avatar. That means he does not openly go about saying that he is God, but rather he comes in the guise of a devotee for us to be attached to him. So that's who we are actually worshipping in this Sankirtana movement. But more specifically, if who's going to come, what the prediction is going to happen. Yes, there's a prediction that there's an avatar named Kalki who's going to come towards the end of Kali Yuga, when it'll be much worse than what it is now. If you think it's worse now, it'll be much worse later on. People will be eating their own children. So that's when Kalki avatar will come and do the needful. But for us, the benediction is that we just simply serve Lord Chaitanya and his associates, and we get something that, again, that was very, in the previous ages, the process was what would seem more complex. We'd meditate for 10,000 years. Here it's one lifetime, following and serving Lord Chaitanya, and we get the perfection. So, can a sinful person be involved in God consciousness? It depends what the definition of sin is. If Srila Prabhupada once asked, "Show me magic," there was a magician there who was performing several magical tricks, and Srila Prabhupada was looking at him, and they asked Srila Prabhupada, "What's your magic?" And he said, "You look at all these people; they've all, his American and European disciples. He said they've all hippies. Now they've all become happies. That means whenever they were engaged in the hippie-like activities, they were engaged in all kinds of activities, drugs and sex and anything that we can think of. And now they've become happy. That means they're just transformed. And we see, like I said, even for us, for myself, like I was saying, austerity and higher taste. As practicing devotees, there are times that we actually are influenced by our lower modes, our lower desires, our lower nature. But by the strength of being in the association of devotees, being just chanting and taking to the process of bhakti, we're able to overcome that. So for us, it's a constant struggle because we are practicing devotees. When we come to the stage of, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service, then everything becomes natural. But for us, like at least I speak for myself, it's a constant struggle. But somehow or the other, I've been fortunate enough to the association devotees to at least come to the stage where my spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada and other devotees are there. So any time that I deviate or even go slightly astray, devotees are there with the whipping stick. Hey, what are you doing? Come. So again, that's the greatest fortune. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Nostril. Mm. Roaring, yeah. Mm. Uncommon way, yeah. 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 So what's it about Krishna's voice? I think in the Nectar of Devotion, one of the qualities that are described of Krishna is about his voice, or I can't remember that exactly. I'll probably have to refer to that, but this is some reference in the Nectar of Devotion that I was just 2 days ago, or just last week, there was a class by Indra Swami that was speaking on that, and make a note of it. There's something about his voice that it can. I'll have to check on that. But yeah, it's very interesting observation. His voice, because his form, people can't conceive it, but the moment he speaks, that's where people, there's some understanding of what's happening. Is there anything that you would, I don't know, anyone on that? Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. And something or the other, maybe unrelated, but once my Guru Maharaj was asked this question, that Indra Maharaj asked him. Anyway, I don't know how this conversation, but it was anyway, I was there. And the question was asked that, does Krishna only speak in Sanskrit? And I think Indra Maharaj or Gira Swami said, Krishna speaks to your heart. So anyway, what was the Nectar Devotion? I think something on those lines that I can't actually remember. But yeah, he has that voice of his, it's thunderous in it, obviously. You can see that it invokes fear in demons, but at the same time it's pleasing to the devotees, the sages here. Yeah, good question. Thank you, bro. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Anything else? Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Go Premanandi. Srila Prabhupada ki.